Hello and welcome to week 5 in biopsychology, where we are discussing chapter 4, genetics, development, and plasticity. This is a huge chapter. There's a lot of information here. First, we look at the genetic components. When you think about that, remember that idea of biopsychology making the attempt to explain everything through biology here. So you're looking at the genetic component about laying the foundation, genetic code about what our nervous system is going to look like, what our brain's going to look like. Then we see the near miraculous process by which the brain develops in utero and then beyond. And then finally we get into an area of psychology that, although it presents itself as somewhat new, the idea has been around for a while, but it's changed. Now, neuron plasticity, neuroplasticity, brain plasticity, these are common terms being used today to describe the process by which the brain rewires itself. Now, as much as that's been around for a long time, back in the day when I was in your seat, taking these introductory classes in psychology, the amount of plasticity that the brain was assumed to have was pretty little. Nowadays, we understand that there's a lot more processes that go on well into adulthood, experiences that we have that change the wiring of our brain, and that we can actually purposefully engage in activities that have the result of rewiring some of our old habits. This brings a lot of hope to conditions such as particularly addictions that have very strong genetic, if not also physiological pathway connections that seem so hardwired, but yet there's still that idea now, especially with advanced imaging and advanced knowledge of the brain and advanced techniques, that we can and do rewire our brain. So we see concepts coming up in this chapter. I got a little laundry list here. It's genetics, behavioral genetics, the study of human behavior as it relates to the genetic code, evolution, brain development. You might remember from your developmental psych class, I go into a whole bunch of that stuff. We have neuron proliferation, which is the rapid production of neurons, up to 250,000 new cells per minute during gestation. There you go. I'll just let that sit. Neuron migration, the migrating of neurons to the place where they're going to become a sensory neuron, or whether they're going to be processing movement or cognitive processing or memory or anything, and the specialization of the nervous system, whether inside the brain but also in the peripheral nervous system. One cell's going to register pain, one's going to register temperature or heat, all of that specialization. The myelination process that increases the efficiency of the neural conduction of the cell. What makes the white matter white is the myelin. Gray matter is unmyelinated nervous tissue. Much of our brain is gray matter. Aside from the corpus callosum, the connection material between the left and right hemisphere of the brain, most of the brain is gray matter. That corpus callosum and then the spinal cord and the rest of the body highly myelinated. So our nerves are white on the outside there. Synaptogenesis, the creation of more synapses. Targeted axon growth. There's dendrification, and then there's axon growth, where the axon is growing in a particular direction to make a connection that we're going to see. We can almost consider that as a major component of what we discuss in this chapter as the adolescent brain, those targeted connections that some of them might not be made yet when adolescents engage in irresponsible behavior. We see neural Darwinism, the idea that, selecting our natural environment is selecting particular neurons and connections to keep on going or not keep on going because they're useful or not useful. Synaptic rearrangement on the surface of the cell. It goes on and on. It's very, very rich material here. Then we look at the adolescent brain and the plasticity that's there. And then, what a great chapter. Make sure that you read the course book and the textbook. There's so much more material in the textbook that I just can't focus enough on I'm not creating a textbook. I'm creating a course book so I can replicate all that. So 3 things to do this week. We had the discussion on the adolescent brain, maybe bringing some experiences as to when you may have had some of those experiences, or your kids, or some of your friends, or whatever. And then we're going to look at some ways in which the brain exercises plasticity, some of the mechanisms that we understand. In the quiz, I'm asking for 2 of them. I'm asking you to describe collateral sprouting and disuse hypersensitivity. These are 2 of many processes that allow our brain to continue growing through the process of neuroplasticity. And then in the chapter 4 assignment, it's a lab type quality to this particular assignment when I want you to expose yourself to a particular experience. I divided this into 2 different ones. You pick one. If you want to do both, knock yourself out. Write about both, that's fine, but I'm only requiring that you do one. It's 2 ways in which you can experience live the process of neuroplasticity. Considering that neuroplasticity adjusts itself, it adjusts our processes, even temporarily, to the demands of our environment. So there's a visual and an auditory example of this. The visual has you look at a graphic video for a very long time. And then when you look away, you will experience a rebound effect that reflects in your senses. You get like this rebound effect that is reflecting the ways in which your neural processing has adjusted to that particular stimulus for a long time. Kind of sets it up. It's going along, and then you look someplace else, and then you get a visual experience. That can make some people feel a little queasy. So that's why I also included an auditory one. The auditory one has you go to a podcast, and for simplicity, I picked one. You go to the podcast, and many podcasts allow you to adjust the speed of the speaker. So you start out listening to this podcast at twice the normal speed, and it's going to be difficult to understand it, but over a period of time, you're going to get better and better. Your brain is adjusting to hearing things that way. And then I want you to switch the podcast to regular speed and describe that experience. You'll see. I won't tell you what it's going to be like, but you'll see what that experience is going to be like, and write up your experiences either with the visual or the auditory, or like I said, if you want to do both, write them up, answer the questions that are in the course book, and submit that as your assignment. All right, and that's it for this week. I will see you online. Have a great week, and take care.